in her service. Umar radiallahu anhu said, you see, she used to do the same for you when you were young, while hoping that you will live. As for you, you wait when she will go away. It can never be equal. When she was raising you, she was anticipating, looking forward for the day when she will see you blossom and live. But now what can you look forward to? No matter what you do of goodness towards her, all you see ahead is her death. You'll see your parents' death. So how they can never be equal, it's impossible. And this hadith is narrated by Ibn al-Jawzi in his book Birrul Walidain. There is another hadith by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, when he was translating or interpreting the ayah, Anishkur li wali walidayk, Allah says, thank me and thank your parents. He said this means, if you thank Allah but not appreciate your parents, then your thanks to Allah will not be accepted. And Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, this hadith is Sahih al-Jami', he said, the Lord is pleased with the pleasing of the parents, and the Lord is angry with him who angers their parents. Jihad in the path of parents, a hadith narrated by At-Tabarani. He said that the Prophet ﷺ said, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, a man passed by one day showing eagerness and vigor in seeking his means of livelihood. Meaning the Sahabas were sitting with the Prophet ﷺ and they saw a man passing by. He's going towards his work. But he was, striving, looking here, working there, in labor, earning his livelihood. The Sahabas looked and said, Subhanallah, what kind of a man is this? They said, Ya Rasulullah, we feel sorry for him. If only he could use his energy for the sake of Allah. In jihad, for example. Rasul ﷺ turned to them and said, if this man is going and working hard in order to support his young children which he has, then he is on jihad. Or if he is working to support 2 elderly parents which he has, then he is on jihad. And if he is working to support himself so that he will not beg, then he is on jihad. But if he is doing that to show off and full of pridefulness, then it is in the path of the shaitan. So jihad is through the parents as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised Yahya alayhi salam and mentioned Isa alayhi salam in their dutiful towards their parents. In the hadith, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, when a man came to him and said, Ya Rasulullah, and you all know this hadith, he said, Ya Rasulullah, Man ahaqqu an-nasi bi suhbati? Who of all the people has the most right of my companionship towards them? Rasul and my service. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam replied, Ummuk, your mother. He asked, Thumma man? Then who? He said, your mother. He said, Thumma man? Then who, Ya Rasulullah? He said, I say your mother. Qala thumma man? He said, who then? Qala thumma abak. Then your father. A lot of people ask this question, how can this be? Why? Ibn Hajar rahmatullahi alayhi comments by saying, this is because the mother goes through 3 stages which the father can never go through. Number 1, she goes through the first stage of pregnancy. This is number 1. The second stage is delivery, the labor. And then third stage is breastfeeding. And each one of these stages the father could never go through. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said, your mother, your mother, your mother, then your father. The father then comes into the stage of assisting the mother, and the mother assisting the father in raising you. Also, in the Sharia, if the father goes poor and the son is able to help, then he must spend on his mother in precedence over his father. This is what this hadith means as well. My brothers and sisters in Islam, now I go to the etiquettes and manners of how we must treat our parents in our daily life. My brothers and sisters, listen carefully. There is a story about Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. He says, I was walking one time and then I saw one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ by the name of Abu Ghassan al-Dabi. I saw him walking in front of an elderly man. So he was walking and this young man was walking in front of an elderly man on their way. I came up to this man, Abu Ghassan, and I asked him, and they were in Madinat al-Munawwara. I said, who is that elderly man walking behind you, Abu Ghassan? And Abu Ghassan replied by saying, that's my father. Abu Hurairah then stopped him and said the following words. He said, Ya Abu Ghassan, you have missed correctness and you have contradicted the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do not walk in front of your father, only behind him or on his right side when he walks. And do not let anyone separate between you and him while you are walking. Do not take a bone that has meat on it to eat it, which your father has looked at, for he might have wanted that bone with the meat to eat it himself. Do not look straight at your father towards his eyes in sharpness. Do not sit until he sits, and do not sleep at home until he goes to sleep first, because maybe he will need something from you. Now this is the ideal character towards our fathers and mothers. This hadith is narrated in At-Tabarani. Some youngsters today who don't understand the value of their parents until they become parents themselves, and then they realize when it's too late. When it's too late. What do? When they are sitting on the table or on the ma'idah when they're eating, I want to show you of ways that they disobey their parents and they don't realize, with this Western influence and other influences. If their mother and father ask them to do something which they don't like or too lazy to do, and the son or daughter is thinking of going on their PlayStation or their Wii game, or they've got someone to chat to on Facebook, they've got something very important, what are they going to say? Hey, what are you doing today? Did you listen to that last music clip? Is that what you're doing tomorrow? Can I come with you? What do they say? Shabab mashghuluna bila muhimma, as the scholars say. Young people, busy without any duty. What are they busy about? I dyed my hair today blonde. I want to show you. Here, click. Did you get it on Facebook? Look. Do you like it? Ooh, that's really good. OMG. Or the boys, too busy for their parents, wanting to go on Facebook or chit-chatter. We used to have MSN, but now it's died out, right? This is for the youngsters. Now they're coming up and saying, hey, did you meet her? Tell me. What did you talk about? Are you going to go on another date with her? Our youngsters have got several hats now, unfortunately. In the past, our parents used to be afraid when we used to go out into the streets. They used to think, where are they going? Who are they walking around with? So when we're at home, they feel safe. Today, unfortunately, with great sorrow, it has become opposite. The children sitting at home in their own bedroom, and they are worse off in what they are doing on the internet than them being outside. They are exploring everything and doing everything in their own bedroom. For me, this is something abnormal. For me, a child is meant to be outside playing, man. What is a child doing inside their bedroom? We used to ground children by saying, go to your bedroom. Go to your room. And they say, I don't want to go to the room and my friends are waiting. Now, we have to ground them by saying, go outside and play. And the child says, I don't want to play. Come on, I want to sit inside the bedroom. Why do you want to sit inside the bedroom? You find they've got their own internet and laptop. I advise you parents, and I know that the youngsters are going to hate me for this. I don't care, hate me. Alright? Hate me because I'm going to say it in your face. Parents, never leave the internet or the computer in their bedroom. Don't buy them one to keep for themselves. Always keep it out in the lounge where everybody can see. Keep it on the table and turn it around so that even guests can see it. Everyone. Establish a bit of trust with them. Give them your password for one of your accounts, but make your private accounts with a separate password so that you can establish trust between them. We're going to talk about that inshallah in 2 days about youth culture. But anyway, children, they're sitting on the table And they don't like what their parents are asking them. So they bring a cup and they're drinking it. Parents ask them, son, can you please take out the rubbish? Bang! They slam the cup on the table. Or they get up and they listen to their parents, but the way they go is like this. They stamp their feet. After doing what they do, the mum and dad say, Allah hirda alaik. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with you, son or daughter. And you know, they grow a head when their mum and dad say these things. So spoiled. They go into their room and slam the door. Or they look at their parents sharply. You have disobeyed them. Or they, what do? They shrivel their lips like that. And they breathe heavily. Why can't you ask my sister? How come I always have to do this? How come we have to do everything? Why can't the boys do the dishes sometimes? Always me. Oh, and the poor parent is sitting there. Then the mother ends up going up and doing the dishes and vacuuming and doing while the children are fighting. Allahu Akbar. You should be racing each other towards that. There is paradise. There is paradise. Sometimes they go far out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say in the Quran, don't even say far out to them. He said, don't even say uff. Al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, which is narrated by Ibn Abbas, he says, if there was in the Arabic language a word that was more inconspicuous, more subtle, more simpler, more less in meaning than uff, Allah would have mentioned it in the Quran. Uff. Far out is worse. Oh my God is double worse. How can you say, oh my God? When God told you, obey them. And you say, oh my God, who are you really disobeying here? Your God or your parents? Allah. So these are worse than that. Al-Rasul sallallahu in Sahih Bukhari, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As says, a man came to the Prophet sallallahu to give him allegiance, saying, I have come to give my bay'ah, my allegiance, to perform hijrah to Medina. In hijrah, we all know how important that is. But I left my parents crying. In the hadith, it doesn't mention whether his parents were Muslim or not. He says, I left my parents crying, Ya Rasulullah. Al-Rasul said to him, then go back and make them laugh as you made them cry. Then you can go on hijrah with me. This hadith is in Musnad Ahmad. There will become a time when people will curse their parents. These are the signs of the last hour, and you will find these hadiths in Sahih al-Jami' and in Sahih Muslim and Bukhari, how they will curse their parents. People will disown their parents and become disobedient to them. Rasul ﷺ said, indeed, on the day of judgment, Allah has servants which He will not speak to them, nor will He purify them, nor will He look at them. And Sahabas asked him, who are they, Ya Rasulullah? He said, those who disown and abandon their parents, and those who disown their children, and the person who was granted a favor by people, but they deny it and they disown these people. And this hadith is in Musnad Ahmad. Cutting off your parents is the worst of sin, and cutting off their relatives and friends is also a great sin. There is a beautiful story, and I wish if you can give me 5 more minutes, I just want to end it with this, strength, inshaAllah. And I want to just cover a little bit about when parents died. There was a young man who came to the Prophet ﷺ complaining to the Messenger ﷺ. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, my father takes my money. He always asks me for money. Rasul ﷺ said, well, call your father. He went to call his father. Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet ﷺ in that time. And he said to him, Rasulullah, when the father comes to you, ask him what you want. But ask him this question as well. Ask him, what were you saying in secret on your way here? Father was muttering something which his son couldn't hear. He said, ask him what he was saying. When the father approached the Rasul ﷺ, asked him, is it true what your son is saying? The father said, Ya Rasulullah, if he only knew what I'm using his money for anyway. I'm using it to look after his poor auntie. She is left without anybody. Where else am I putting it? Only in places where I have to. Using it towards his family. because I'm poor. The Prophet ﷺ said, look, I want to ask you a question. Tell me about what you were saying in secret when you were coming towards me here. The father looked at the Prophet ﷺ and said, I made some verses of poetry. Rasul ﷺ said, please say them to me. And he said, غذوتك مولودا وعلتك يافعا تعل بما أجني عليك وتنهل إذا ليلة نادتك بالسقم لم أبت بسقمك إلا ساهرا أتململ. Which means, O son, I nourished you when you were a baby, and I looked after you in care as you grew up until you became an adolescent. You lived upon what I worked for and strived and sacrificed in my body and time and wealth, so that you may live healthy. Whenever a night passed you, when you were sick or ill or coughed, I was the first to be up, carrying you and looking upon you with my heart, afraid if an atom or a little breeze would harm you in any way. I could not sleep while seeing you sick until you slept, and then I slept. كأني أنا المطروق دونك بالذي طرقت به دوني فعيني تحمل. He said, when I ceased to see you sick, it was as if I was the one who was sick and ill, and so my eyes would always overwhelm with tears, but you never knew. And then he said, فلما بلغت السن والغاية التي إليها مدى ما كنت فيك أؤمل جعلت جزائي غلظة وفظاظة كأنك أنت المنعم المتفضل. He said, and when you finally reached the adulthood, which all my life I was anticipating and looking forward to seeing you become that. I mean, this is all he's doing, right? He's raising him, waiting for the day he's going to get married, the day when he will get his qualifications and finish, the day when he will get his skill, the day when he can stand on his feet, the day when he will rejoice. He said, until you reach the day when I have all my life anticipated in my heart to see you reach and rejoice, you gave me a reward, and your reward was harshness and frowniness and mistreatment, as if I am the one who owes you and you owe me nothing. The way you treated me is like what a neighbor would treat his neighbor. I wish that you even gave me that. Al-Rasul ﷺ, he looked up at the father, and the father looked at him, and the Prophet ﷺ's beard was soaked with tears. From his emotion, Al-Rasul ﷺ grabbed the boy from his chest. He shook him and said to him, أنت ومالك لأبيك. You and everything you own belongs to your father. This hadith is narrated in Ibn Majah. Today we see children taking their own parents to court because they took their house or their property. Allahu Akbar. And finally, my brothers and sisters in Islam, Rasul ﷺ was asked by a man who came to him, and this hadith is in Sunan Abi Dawood. He asked him, while the companions were sitting there, they said, a man from Banu Salama came to the Prophet ﷺ one day and said, Ya Rasulullah, is there any kindness left that I can do to my parents after they have died? Rasul ﷺ replied, yes, there are 4 things that I can tell you right now. Making dua for Allah to forgive them. Brothers and sisters, don't think that if they've died, that our duty towards them has been cut off. You still have a duty until your death. Making dua for them, for Allah to forgive them until your death. Number 2, to fulfill their promises and their will, which they have left behind. Number 3, to be generous to their friends. If you knew that they had friends, be generous towards them, whether you like them or don't. Number 4, keep relationships with those whom you are related to through them, like uncles, aunties, relatives, cousins. Rasul ﷺ said, this is what kindness remains towards them after their death. In another hadith he says, perform hajj on their behalf. This is by Abu Dawood, and Al-Albani says it's sahih. Give charity on their behalf. The hadith is in Sahih Muslim. Making up compulsory fasting which you know that they missed out on. This hadith is in Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari, hadith number 1851 and hadith 1147. Also fulfilling their vows and debts. If they owe people money or whatever, then fulfill it for them. This hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. Maintaining the ties. Rasul ﷺ said the best of good deeds is keeping ties with father's friends. And this hadith is in Sahih Muslim. Again, dealing with non-Muslim parents, I say it one more time, dealing with non-Muslim parents is also a duty to be done in goodness. Obeying them of forbidden things is haram, but obeying them in everything else is a must. Parents, if they tell you to do something of an act which Allah loves, but it is only voluntary, and they say to you, don't do it yet, you must obey them. For example, you want to pray a nafil prayer, and your mother says to you, son, daughter, just help me out before you pray. What do? Pray first, or go to your mother first? Go to your mother first. Father says to you, son, can you help me calculate these earnings today? And you are about to